During the Bosnian conflict, this term was coined and put together, ethnically cleansing, which basically means to create an area where only one kind, one human race lives, and everybody else is not welcome in there anymore.
The people inside were literally pushed together, so one bullet would just kill one person, and they would hit somebody in a leg and then go through someone else.
Nobody has ever, or has anybody has explained to us why. I don't still understand it. Why? Why would you do this? Why?
Bosnia was formerly part of a country known as Yugoslavia. It had a president up until 1980 known as Josip Broz, and famously known across the Balkans as Tito. He died and hadn't a succession plan in place, nor a successor. This meant that people that had nationalist rhetoric, such as Slobodan Milosevic, who was a Serbian leader at the time, would promote speeches towards the end of the 1980s, and as such, countries decided to vote for their own referendums and independence. There were three main ethno-nationalist groups. The first were Bosnian Muslims, also known as Bosniaks, and followed by that were Bosnian Serbs, who are mainly of an Orthodox faith, followed by Bosnian Croats, who are more predominantly of a Catholic faith.
Underlying tensions began to emerge. Certain communities felt that they were living under oppression and maybe not being treated as equally as others. That's when the conflicts began to emerge in the region, and people who were friends and neighbours simply turned against each other according to their loyalties.
In order to create a greater Serbia, it meant that land needed to be acquired, and it also meant that something that was later coined as ethnic cleansing would take place. People were forced to leave their homes, and not only were they leaving their homes, they were leaving their lives.
Individuals began attacking known sort of Bosnian household, well known and well off. So they would come to their house and try to take the money or a car or something else, and would usually just kill them.
We had a normal day harvesting some crops, and we tried settling for the night. At that point, there was a knock on our door. Dad went to speak to them. They were actually asking for somebody else. So they were asking for a neighbour. So Dad said, look, this is not his house, I'm Masoud. He says, never mind, don't be afraid, come with us, just show us where his house is. Basically, they had a list of all the influential people in the village they wanted to kill.
You had people that had soldiers coming round door by door, collecting families, putting them on buses or trains and sending them to destinations that they didn't know. At times these were concentration camps, other times these were areas of free territory or across the borders, and then they were left to fend for themselves. These were the luckier stories, should we say. You had cases where families were massacred and left.
A friend of ours, of my father's, he heard in a neighbour's house, loud cries, and he came out to see, neighbour, what's going on? Is everything okay? What's happened? And they shot him there, and they wounded his son.
After about 10 to 15 minutes, we heard the gunshots. All night we were just waiting for Dad. So the morning came, Mum went towards the house. And as they were approaching the house, they could see the bodies lying on the road. We were waiting in the center of the village. Mom was crying and just saying, you haven't got Dad anymore. 4 bodies on the main road, scattered, unrecognizable, some of them.
My auntie's son, he was taken to a bridge where he was made to jump off the bridge and be shot, and then he would get out to the water and be shot again, and it was like repeated until they actually shot them and left them to be taken away by the river.
After Dad's killing and the massacre which took place in our village, it was quite evident our turn was probably coming. And we started negotiating, and they said, we'll let you leave. All your belongings, including your house, anything that you possessed, you actually leaving it to us. And we were fine with that. Material possessions are nothing. You want to leave, you want to carry on.
So they had like rows of buses again for us. We didn't know where we were going or anything, what was happening to us, but that was it. I remember one old couple, they couldn't get on because it was just a crowd of people were trying to get in, and they just shot them. So just shot them and left them there.
As we were leaving the town, as a final send-off, the local Serbs, they've lined up the side of the road with machine guns, and they've opened fire on the lorries with canvas, and the people inside were literally pushed together. So one bullet would just kill one person, and they would hit somebody in a leg and then go through someone else. I think about 15 died.
You had men and even families that went through mountainous areas, that went through heavy forestation, all in the hopes of either finding the free territory or leaving Bosnia altogether. But these were never safe routes.
We know that over 8,000 males were killed, and many are still lost, not found. Many families are still grieving and waiting for news about their loved ones. You can imagine this psychological trauma is ongoing. It takes many generations for families to heal.
Srebrenica is a small town in eastern Bosnia that almost borders onto Serbia. Alongside it, there's another town called Žepa, and these two in 1993 became known as safe zones. Unfortunately, in 1995, this was overrun by a man called Ratko Mladic, who was a Serbian general at the time, and masses of Bosnian Serb soldiers.
Majority of women and children got escorted to the safe territory. Men got sort of taken to these execution places and systematically shot.
You had stories of men that decided to take their lives into their own hands and walk what is now referred to as the Death March, which is a 61-kilometre walk from Srebrenica itself to Tuzla to try and reach the safe area and safe territory. But they were constantly bombarded, attacked, and this column of men was often divided, with many again being captured and executed.
People escaped in any which way they could. There were smuggling gangs operating in the area who would smuggle people out. Some people, some families went through the official UN routes, but many people felt they had no choice but to take whatever means they could to escape.
Bosnia is probably one of the most complex countries in the world now. It's divided into two entities, one being the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and the other being Republika Srpska. Republika Srpska is an entity which has been, the majority of it has been ethnically cleansed, and that was done during the war. But this was part of the Dayton Peace Accords in order to establish peace in the country. Because of this, there's still a divide. There is still a divide between all three nationalities. There is a divide in politics. It means that things are done in a way that don't work in the best ways. People get jobs based on their nationalities or their genders or where they come from or who they know. The corruption levels in the country are fairly high. We have the highest unemployment rate for young people in the world. The way of life is difficult. You have constant reminders of what happened in the war, with buildings either not being finished or renovated, or whole villages that have just completely been destroyed. It's a very empty country at times. People
are returning slowly back to Bosnia. There are signs of that. However, as with war, some of those memories are painful, and maybe some people choose not to return to revisit those painful memories. However, there are some people who are going back, helping to rebuild the country.
I get asked a lot at work, would you ever go back? I'd love to go back, but it would be really difficult for me to start again, because I've lived nearly all my teenage life, some of my adult life here, and it's just, this is my home.
I've actually lived in Bradford more than back home in Bosnia. We try to visit Bosnia at least annually.
I do go back to Bosnia, we go visit it, and I love my country. It's nice, but I consider this country as my home.
But going back, it kind of brings different kind of memories of us growing up, of some of happy childhood. In a sense, I'd say that both are our homes. Yeah.
When we travel over the summer, we try to drive every year. You're thinking that you're going home, but when you're coming back, you're coming home as well. I've got two homes now. My home is Bradford, but my home is back home in Bosnia as well.
I think if you see hatred, you should stand up for it. And I think if you let it, it'll fester and it'll develop and it'll grow into something bigger.
Every individual is powerful in their own way. We can all stand up and fight against injustices, whether they are local or global. We have a duty, and we can stand up and speak out against injustice and oppression and promote peace and respect for others all across the globe.